On Tuesday, July 7th at around 8 a.m., two workers at 235 East 42nd Street found two columns to be severely buckled on the 21st floor of the office to residential conversion happening right in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. Hi, my name is Matt, and if you're new to this channel, I make videos about structural engineering, and today I want to talk about these two buckling columns that happened at 235 East 42nd Street, and I want to approach it from a structural engineering perspective, since that's what my background is. All the reporting that I'm going to be citing in this video is from the New York Times or the Gothamist, and if you would like to read any of these sources for further reading, they will be included in the caption below. So feel free to check that out after this video, and I'll include all citations in the video as well. Before we get started, as always, if you like this type of content, I would encourage you to like and subscribe, and if you have any questions throughout, leave them down in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them after this video is done. So a little bit of background on the project. This is an office to residential conversion happening at 235 East 42nd in Midtown Manhattan. In addition to converting this to a residential building, they're also adding 5 stories to the top and filling in this corner over here with 10 additional stories. As I said, the developer for the project is Metroloft Management. The architect for the project is Gensler. The structural engineer of record is GACE Consulting Engineers. CCM is part of the construction management team. I believe they're on the side of the owner. And the general contractor is a company that has been formed called 235GC LLC. Now, the first thing I want to do is talk about some of the responses to the failure coming from these parties. As reported by the New York Times, we have Nathan Berman with Metroloft, who described this as a typical construction mishap, and further specified that there was likely inadequate reinforcement of steel columns to support the new structural loads. More recently, we also have a statement from the engineering side of things. This is Chris Bahan with the engineering firm GACE. The reinforcement from the 19th floor to the top of the 21st floor, which would have significantly increased the column strength, was never installed. The structure was not reinforced as GACE's design required. To go over this a little bit more, the Gothamist actually published some of the structural engineering drawings, and we're going to look at those a little bit later in the video. But first, let's go back to the incident itself and break down what we're actually looking at here. So what we see here on the 21st floor are two buckled columns. Now, columns are typically a compressive element. They hold the floor above it as well as the floor above that. And as you go down a building, the load that a column takes is going to increase. It's directly proportionate to the number of floors above that column. Buckling only happens in compression, and it's when you're pushing on an element and that element essentially wants to move out of the way because there's a limited amount of space and it's being pushed into that limited amount of space. That's a very unmathematic way to describe it, but you can take any long stick, push on it, and it's gonna bow out in one direction or another. That is essentially a buckling failure. I have this little prop here to help show that. If this is our column and we push down, this is that buckling failure. It wants to bow out to one side or the other. We're gonna get into that in a little bit more detail and talk about some of the equations behind it as well. So this is the equation for Euler buckling. The two things I want to highlight are it's dependent on the section properties, specifically the moment of inertia, and also the length of the element. And it's inversely related to the length. So what this means is as our length increases, so as our column gets taller, that buckling strength is going to decrease. Now what we can do to counter this is as it gets taller, we can also increase the size. Because if we increase the size, we increase the moment of inertia, and thus we increase the buckling strength. So those are the relationship of the two variables. So when you're building a column, it depends on how big it is and how tall it is. Those are the two main factors when it comes to designing for buckling. The way that the column is connected also plays a role. So if I take this, if you just kind of support it very barely like this and push down on it, it's going to be weaker than if I grip it like this and push down on it this way. You can see it's much more resistant than if I barely touch it with my fingertips. So for example, what you would describe this in structural engineering terms is this would be a pinned condition because you're only supporting that translational movement. And this would be a fixed condition where you're forcing the rotation at the ends of the column to be 0. So you have your pinned support like this makes it weaker. Your fixed makes it a little bit stronger, but you have to put more steel to actually resist it and fix it like this. Now, going back to the building at 235 East 42nd Street, it makes sense that the buckling failure happened here. Because in the original building, the 21st story used to be the top level for this column. This column used to only support the roof some snow, and maybe some mechanical equipment if there was any. So this means that you could have your lightest and smallest column size on this top level. Then as you go down on the subsequent floors underneath, that column would likely get bigger and bigger and bigger until you're on the bottom level where you're going to see the biggest columns. So it makes sense that this buckling failure is happening where the column is the weakest in the original design. Now in the new renovation, they're adding 10 stories to fill out this little corner. And by adding these 10 stories, suddenly this weak roof column is now in the center of the building, which means it now has to support the weight of 10 floors when it originally just had that roof and that small load there. This is why column strengthening and reinforcement was required for the design, because you need to increase that section size so you can increase that buckling strength so that it can handle the new load that's being put on it. So the Gothamist actually released some of the drawings in their reporting. So let's take a look at it and let me help explain what's going on here so that we can all sort of understand and follow what we see. So this here is a floor plan of the 21st story. Judging by the 3D layout of the building, you can see that there's like a little tiny bump out here, then a much bigger one on the other side, which makes me think that these two here must be the columns that failed. And then it's on top of these columns where this is the last story of the original building, and then the 10 additional stories are added above this location here. So these appear to be the location of those two buckled columns. Now, they also released this fun chart. This is known as a column schedule, and it essentially discretizes all of the column sizes and design requirements into a single chart. So this pinkish color here represents where new columns are going to be added. And then anything with this hashed sort of pattern on top of it is where the columns need to be strengthened. So you can see here, this area over here is where you have those 10 additional stories being added. And that means that these areas down here, these are the floors that need to be reinforced in the original building to carry this new weight. And so that makes these columns here the ones that failed on the 21st floor. Now we also have a look at what these reinforcing details look like from GAC's original structural plans. So you can see they have different requirements for whether it's an interior column, an exterior column, a corner column, or a continuous reinforcement at a column differential. I'm guessing this is maybe like a column splice. So basically all of these columns have different loads going in. These are the different load cases. An exterior column is going to have less than an interior column. A corner column is going to have even less than that. So this is kind of how they optimize the plate sizes a little bit, so you don't have to put tons of reinforcement everywhere, and they can get a little bit of cost savings back on their steel. So looking at the exterior column, this appears to match the case that we have in our building. And you can see that we have our typical I-beam section or our wide flange section, and this has two plates that are going to be welded to the side of the section. The P1, P2, P3, P4, this is going to be specified in the column schedule that we looked at before. So let's go there and see what's up. So going back to the 21st story and zooming in, it's really blurry, so we're going to do our best. But it appears it has an EX, which I assume is for exterior column, and I see an asterisk, which probably means they're going to maybe add a little bit more detail. I'm not too sure. And it seems to say P4 is what I'm seeing. So let's go back up. We have the P4 is the 1.5 inch thick plate. So for this exterior column, it's prescribing the thickest plate that they have available, which makes sense because this is one of the weakest columns since it's on a roof level of the original building. Now let's talk about why we would reinforce a column this way. And I have another little fun prop. Two of my friends got me this little I-beam section, which is perfect to describe what's going on here. I've been saying I-beam. This is technically a wide flange section, but it looks like an I. And so it's typically known as an I-beam, or in this case, it'd be an I column. So the way that you break this down is in your wide flange section, you have your web, which runs vertically up and down. And then you have a top flange and a bottom flange, which run perpendicular to the web and are typically horizontal. So the center of our section is going to be right along here. And so what this does is you get the tallest possible section. So you're going to have a tall, slender web, and then you want to maximize the area that's furthest away from the center. So that's why you're going to put a ton of area on the top and a ton of area on the bottom. So now all of your area is centered at the furthest possible point from the center, which means this is incredibly stiff. Now, buckling happens in 3D. So if we take this column, we have two different perspectives to look at it. We have it upright like this, and also if we look at it from the side. This is known as its strong axis because you have your flanges are vertically far away from the center, When you look at it from the side, it goes into this H shape, and this is its weak axis, because now we have a lot of area at the web is actually right at the centroid, and now our flanges, which are supposed to help increase the stiffness, are now just two webs that don't have tons of area up here. So this is known as its weak axis. And if we go back to the images of the buckled column, we can see that the buckling is happening in the direction of this weak axis. Let me pull out my other column here. So this, I don't know if you can see it from there, it's also in the shape of an I-beam. Upright like this is the strong axis, and flat like this is the weak axis. So this, we have our flanges are far from the center. Here we have it's on its side. So when I push down on this, the buckling is always going to go in the direction of that weak axis. So even like this, if I try and push on it this way, it's really resistant. If I go like this and push on it, it's really flexible. So that's why bending will always go in that weak axis direction. And so that's why it's important to reinforce the steel in that weak axis direction. So let's look at the detail again and see what they did. So looking at this, we have, this is the strong axis. This is probably fine, who knows? In the weak direction, what this detail is doing is you add a plate on the top and a plate on the bottom. So now we have, finally, we have these new plates are acting far from the centroid, which is going to greatly increase the stiffness and greatly increase the moment of inertia, which then means you're going to have a higher buckling capacity. And I'm assuming if it was followed by design, you would be able to avoid this buckling failure from happening. So that's all I have to say on this for now. It's easy to look at this from a structural engineering perspective and think that I know what's happening, but we really won't have an answer until a full inspection and full autopsy is done. So I will try and update you guys as much as I can, or on these other platforms. So thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting this channel. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you for watching.